Well, the federal election is in high gear, and so is the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to our 2015 federal candidate interviews with those individuals seeking to be a member of Parliament for either Cambridge or the new federal riding of Kitchener South Hespeler. And today in my office, sitting here in our studio, is a friend of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. He's at most business after hours, by the way. My friend Brian May from the Liberal Party representing Cambridge.
Thank you for having me here. This
Good
is
to have
great.
you here again.
I appreciate it.
What was it, 2011?
2011. This was definitely new
You
uncharted
haven't got
territory.
any more gray hairs
There's a couple
either.
there. Yes.
I know,
I also
not
have
many, though.
I also have another little one since then, which is keeping
really?
me busy. Yeah, thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Yeah, she's 4. She was sort of the people asked me why I wanted to run in 2011. And why then and now? And I said, listen, my wife is just about to have her second. I didn't want the election.
Yeah. But
yeah,
now you want it.
Yes, exactly. So I have 2 now, James and Kennedy, 8 and 4, and they're
Oh,
right in
great.
it. They're canvassing with me, knocking on doors.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's been fun. They're great, and my family's incredibly supportive. So I'm very pleased to be representing Cambridge. Representing the Liberal Party in Cambridge again.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly long campaign. We've
Oh,
been knocking on doors for a long time.
You go
already,
through a few pairs of shoes, I'm sure.
already. Yeah, absolutely. And I hope folks understand that this isn't normal. This is the longest election since the 1840s.
Wow.
And also I hope they remember it's also the most expensive. We're now hearing numbers in the hundreds of millions of dollars extra that this election's going to cost, which obviously we don't think is appropriate. But
Well, then you look south of the border and they spend billions and billions. And,
Well,
and
you
then
wanna
somebody said to me the other, because we were talking about that, and I said the same thing. I said, holy smokes, look how much is it going to cost for us to elect a representative? And then that individual looked at me and said, well, what's the price of democracy to you?
it's a fantastic.
I guess, you know what, in the end, yes, it's long. I feel it's long because, quite frankly, people in the summertime really aren't paying attention. They're enjoying the beach and
Well, let's be honest. It's long because of the Fair Elections Act.
Oh, yeah.
The Conservatives have
Yep.
planned this for a very long time and are being quite honest that, hey, we've changed the rules to do this. They want to spend more money than anybody else because they know they have it, and it's a taxpayer that's actually on the hook for that.
And I think that's where the challenge is with
Yep.
the Canadian election system, and
Yep.
it's quite a bit different from the American system where they can just go out and raise billions and billions and have these
Absolutely.
special interest groups.
And I don't think anybody is suggesting they want to go down that road.
No. Oh, I hate that stuff. Although it is entertaining.
Well, fair enough.
If you're a politico like I am, I love watching all those debates, and well, I love watching people go from the top to the bottom and then back up to the top and fluttering all over. Actually, we've seen some of that in our election, and that's time does that. So.
Yep.
I think at the time we're sitting down talking about this, it's virtually a dead heat, where it certainly didn't start off like that, and it had
Right.
some flips and turns throughout the way. But we still got a little bit of ways to go. Yet there's still going to be lots of walking and knocking for you. But you are the type of individual, though, Brian, and be honest about
Sure.
this. You love this process.
This is my Super Bowl.
Yeah.
This is absolutely what we've been planning for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And you're right. I enjoyed it. I love talking to people at the doors. That's how we learn that and we listen as much as we do talk. My throat is definitely a little raw today. We were
That's why we've
canvassing all
got
day,
you
got
a
some
cup of water. Yes.
But it's you're right. This is why we do this.
It's a fun
And
time
it's a
too.
fun
You get to
time,
meet
yeah.
some great people, whether they support you or whether they don't.
Yeah.
It's always nice to meet people.
You know what? We're not meeting a lot of people that are rude at the doors.
No.
Everybody's incredibly interested in what's going
Yeah.
on, and those that aren't are very polite, and we're all Canadian, right? So
Yeah, that comes natural.
exactly.
Well, let's get into the meat of it.
Sure.
As you know, and you love this, I know,
do,
because
I
as
do.
soon
I
as you
think this
came
is
in, you
great.
said, hey, I like this backdrop
Yep.
better than the last one. Small business, too big to ignore. We really believe small business needs that voice. They're working hard 12, 14-hour days just to try and keep things going. So we want to be that voice for them, and we really believe in the good works that they do. One statistic that I won't share later, but something that's really important is 80% of all new jobs come from small businesses, companies with under 100 employees. So they're really important to all of us. If we want to be job creators, we got to be looking to small business because those are
Exactly.
the ones that are growing. So
Yep.
anyway, 2008, 2009, as you well remember, brought in one of the most devastating economic times since the Great Depression. Your party at the time, though, questioned the government's reaction to that and their path in which they were going to deliver a revival to the state of the economy. So they wanted to do infrastructure investment and all kinds of stuff. And your leader is now suggesting that we're once again feeling that pinch. In fact, we know we're feeling
Absolutely.
that pinch. And that he's suggesting that we maybe need to look at 3 more years of deficit because we need to have some infrastructure investment. Why don't you tell me what's different now compared to then? Or are we really in the same thing and we really need to do a broader injection of investment than what was done originally in 2008, 2009?
Well, I thank you for this question because, to be honest, I'm incredibly proud of the policy that has come out with regard to the $125 billion that you're referring to over the next 10 years. And so let's back up a bit. In 2008, as you'd mentioned, the Economic Action Plan, 2009, the Economic Action Plan came out. But it wasn't a proactive approach. You got to back up even a little bit further. We had a government in 2008 that whose finance minister stood up in the House of Commons and said there wouldn't be a recession in this country and that it was a good time to buy stocks. Where every other country in the G8 were feeling the pinch. They knew they were in a recession. The Bank of Canada was saying that we have to do something, and it actually took the other parties to get together and say, listen, we have to do something to encourage this government to react and realize that there's a problem here. And so, of course, if you remember, Stephen Harper prorogued Parliament to stop the any type of coalition, and then came back with the Economic Action Plan. So I think the biggest difference between 2008 and what we're talking about here is the fact that what we're talking about is incredibly proactive. We realize we have never actually come out of this recession from 2008, 2009. You know, we've chugged along in terms of just sort of eking by, and we really need to move forward. And the Economic Action Plan piece, the 26,000 infrastructure jobs all across Canada. There wasn't a very significant focus with those jobs. What we're talking about is really keying in on sectors that not only will help infrastructure right now and help get the economy moving right now, but they're going to be legacy pieces that are going to create jobs long term. So we're talking about social infrastructure. We're talking about, the idea of public infrastructure, green infrastructure, that will really focus that money and make sure that
So it's not just fixing a road,
Exactly.
it's actually building something that's going to employ people.
Exactly, transportation infrastructure. We need to be smarter with our money. And you know what? This came out and everyone went, wow, this is bold. This is incredibly.
Well, I think that's what all the media is saying. The media is saying, hey, here's a guy coming out saying, no, we need to stay in deficit.
And I think, one of the biggest endorsements we've got, of course, was David Dodge, former governor of the Bank of Canada, has come out and said, this is exactly, good on you, Mr. Trudeau. This is exactly what we need right now. And we do have a government right now that, once again, coincidentally, it's an election year, but is denying that we have a recession. Well, at this time, the numbers came out this morning. We're in a recession. There is no more.
Now let's quantify that for everybody. A technical recession.
Technical
Yes.
recession, but you know what?
I don't want to scare people.
Fair enough. But we have a real responsibility to have a leader in Ottawa who is going to have that honest conversation. You saw the first debate, the closing argument that Stephen Harper made in the in that debate talked about how we were the best in the G7. And listen, I love this country. I love this community, and I'll drape the Canadian flag around me as much as the next guy. But there isn't an economic indicator out there that would suggest we are the best in the G7. In fact, when you include the G20, we're 15th, and we're the only one in a technical recession. So we have to have those honest conversations about where we're at. And I honestly, I believe that this government is completely out of touch with small business, with individuals that are trying to make ends meet in the middle class families.
Well, as you said, the business world isn't surprised that our economy has slipped a little. as you said, we've been chugging along. We haven't been bustling along. However, there are some real issues that, to some degree, some business people will say have held them back. And that is trade agreements. So, the CETA agreement was in place, but it's not in place.
Yes.
The South Korean agreement, and we're waiting for the Asia Pacific agreement to come on as well. And there's a number of companies who look at, trade as being global trade and free or global trade being really important to the growth of their business. And also, probably the biggest one that faces small businesses are trade barriers that are interprovincial. The wine industry in Niagara can't ship it to
Yeah.
BC because Kelowna gets mad. And, so what will a Liberal government do on trade agreements globally and interprovincial trade barriers?
Well, obviously, we are an exporting nation. This is an incredible component of what we do. It's very important that we get this right. And I think you look at the trade agreements that we've seen over the last decade. It seems to be very one way in a lot of respects. But to your point about the provincial trade agreements, there are federal measures in place to focus on this. But we've had a lost decade when it comes to leadership in this area. We do not have a prime minister right now that is even willing to sit down with the premiers of this country and have those kinds of conversations and open up those barriers. This has been a lost decade.
Because it does take cooperation from the provinces.
It does.
There's
But
no question about that.
if you have a CEO of a company that isn't even willing to sit down with their VPs, that company's not going to survive for very long. You know that, and the folks that you represent understand that as well. You can't be just simply writing checks and saying, okay, you guys go figure it out. We need a leader, and Trudeau has committed to that. He has said, we will, for the first time in 9 years, have a first ministers meeting in this country, and to me that is the first step.
Yeah. I think we have to get over that.
Absolutely.
I look at some of these poor. I've got some friends that are in the wine industry in Niagara, and they can't figure it out. It's just critically important for them to be able to expose their product. They can expose it to the world, but they can't expose it to BC.
Yeah.
It almost seems ridiculous. But another issue that has faced small businesses is a skilled trades issue and skilled workers. Governments like to feed the system with educational investments, which are great. We love to have programs that'll train our youth, there's no question. However, most businesses can't wait for 2 or 3 years for a graduate to come out, or even more than 3 years. They need them now.
Yes.
The Trained Foreign Worker program is not working, in spite of, I'm sure, the government's best efforts to remodel it and reform it after some fast food restaurant in Saskatchewan hired an illegal immigrant and paid them under the table. That shouldn't break down a whole system from our perspective. There's just too much red tape and burden and paperwork to go through to try and get someone here.
Yeah.
And a small business owner can't do that. They're working 12, 14-hour days. They need something a little more streamlined and a little better. The education is great. I'd love to encourage all our young students to go and take courses to be a welder or steel fabricator. The problem is, a welder is a really good example. A Red Seal welder, it comes with experience.
Years, yeah.
The other one is truck drivers. Nobody seems to think that truck drivers are skilled labor, but I can't back up a 45-foot trailer.
Can I.
And I don't think you can either, and there's a lot of people who can't.
Yeah.
I see them drive on the streets every day. They better not try. So truck drivers are a problem as well.
There's a shortage for sure.
We have a trucking company here in our region who would hire 150 truck drivers tomorrow if he could get them.
I've heard the same, yeah.
He'd take them from Europe because they drive on narrow streets and on Autobahns. So they got to be great drivers, What will a Liberal government do to help small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and big businesses get the skilled workers they need no matter where they come from?
So this is obviously an incredibly complex issue, and as you know, there are 6 avenues for immigration in this country, and this is an area where I feel our current government has failed. You touched on it with the temporary foreign workers. The whole idea of that was being abused. We called the Liberal government in 2013 called for an audit of this system. Every single conservative MP voted against that. We need to look at that first and foremost, because you're looking at a segment of workforce that is it's just not the way it was designed. You know, the temporary foreign worker program was designed to help businesses that simply couldn't find Canadians that could do this job. And as you pointed out, you know, fast food. There's a ton of youth in this country that are either unemployed or underemployed that aren't having access to these jobs. But to your point about the trades, I couldn't agree more. I think that there's a lack of focus around the training programs. We need to be more proactive and not reactive to those situations. And I'll tell you, one of the things that the Liberal government will do that will have an immediate impact on this is reinstate the long form census. We absolutely need to start collecting this information early so that businesses can talk to the federal government and say, you know, this is what we're going to see in 5-10 years. We need to prepare for that and to focus our training specifically in that regard. We are literally the only country in the world, probably the only organization in the world that is systematically collecting less information intentionally than before. In this day and age, when information is collateral, that just simply doesn't make any sense. So we need to focus. We need to, first of all, bring that back. And I think, you know, we have a situation in this country where we have a lot of people that want to come here. We have to look at immigration. We have to look at the backlog of family class visas, and that whole scenario, that whole situation definitely needs to be.
I'm going to give you a hint on what is the solution that small business owners tell me. Grade immigration, worker immigration, skilled worker immigration on payroll. If they're going to pay $50,000 a year or more, it's likely not an entry level, and it's likely not an unskilled position. And you know what? Businesses are telling me that all the time.
Same here. We've gone to factory tours.
Well, you know, because you're in your employment, you're connected to the immigrant worker.
You know, and not just the immigrant worker, but you know, in terms of skilled trades, you know, I worked with the University of Waterloo. I was the manager of outreach for cooperative education. And I worked with the 4,500 companies that hired the 18,000 co-op students, and we know what the challenges are. I know what the challenges are that not just large companies like Toyota, but also all those startups that are looking for students. And you know, those very specific skill sets that they're looking for, we as a government need to support that, and we need to be on top of that. And right now we're simply not.
Yeah, we have to do. You know, something's got to be better, because employers need people and people need jobs.
Yeah.
And you know, that sounds pretty easy when you put it that way, and it probably should be easy, but. You know, smarter minds than me, I guess, think these things over and come up with stupid ideas. But, you know, doing business on Ontario is very expensive. You know that. Hydro costs are soaring and will outpace business production, you know, dramatically quick. Carbon tax or credit system is coming. We know that because it's been announced. That'll just pile on more costs. The Ontario Retirement Pension Plan, ORPP, is coming. It's slated to be big business in 2017, mediums in 18, and small businesses in 2019. And most small businesses are saying, I don't want to take, it's not that I don't want to take care of my employees. I want to take care of my employees. I don't have the 2% payroll, so something's got to give one way or the other. And interestingly enough, and you'll love to hear this, I had 2 small businesses actually poll their employees and say, look, I'm willing to throw 2% in the pot if you are. And not one employee wanted to put 2% in the pot. So even the employees are saying, nah, I don't want this. You know, I don't want this. But in any event, we're not talking about the employees here. We're talking about businesses. And I think, you know, what many people will say is this is not only driving existing business away, but it's driving away potential businesses that are looking to Ontario. As a senior level of government, you could address this.
Yes.
And you could address this by saying, you know, we need to take some responsibility for a lot of these issues. Because small business and businesses really say, you know, some of these ideas really aren't going to address the issue. Carbon tax, for example, is really good. It's not unlike gas tax. You know, is it really going to road infrastructure? Is carbon tax really going to fight greenhouse gas emission when every single human being exhausts 2 pounds of CO2s every single day just by breathing? You know, I think Chinese 511 million tons of CO2 emissions just from them breathing every year. So,
Yeah.
you know, we're skeptical on whether or not this stuff addresses the issues, and it's just piling more and more and more onto government, or onto small business. So, your leader, oddly enough, when he was asked by the media whether or not he would support the ORPP, he would not answer that and said, we're going to look at CPP and we're going to fix the situation with CPP. I think I haven't polled them, but I think business would prefer that over ORPP.
Yes. Yeah.
What is the stand of the Liberal government?
Well, you know what, and you covered a number
Well,
of
I
issues
know,
there,
I
but
know. I tend to do that.
I'll zero in on the ORPP issue, and again, and I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but this is again a lack of leadership in Ottawa. We know that the ORPP was not the first choice for the Ontario provincial government. We know that they went to the federal government and said, we have a major problem here. And just to backtrack, my background, obviously with the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, I see folks and the challenges that they had in 2008. I know through my volunteer experience as the finance chair for the Social Planning Council of Cambridge, I've seen the statistics and sat in on those presentations with all these social groups talking about this tidal wave that's coming. You know, we know that folks, let's say in their 50s or late 40s, lost their job in 2008, 2009. They said, okay, this is a blip. Didn't come back right away and get to work. They burned through their savings. They are not prepared now for retirement. We know that the social services are saying this is a massive problem. We do not have the resources, and it's going to cost us an exponential amount of money to deal with this problem. At the end, whether it be food banks, whether it be shelters, whether it be whatever, we know that that's not the right solution. So the Ontario government's listening to those groups and saying, okay, we need to fill this gap. We need to support these people that at no fault of their own are in a position where they simply cannot afford their retirement. And we have a federal government who's extended the retirement age to 67. That's again just piling on to those folks. The ORPP, like I was saying, was not the first choice. The first choice, they went to the federal government and said, please help us. Please consider increasing CPP. Federal government said, not our problem, not our issue. You guys go figure it out. They came back again and said, okay, well, what about if we did our own, like Quebec, like what BC is sort of kicking around right now, and you help us administer it, saving hundreds of millions of dollars in administration costs. Nope, not interested. Sorry, you guys are on your own. So this is literally the third option, and you're right, it's not the best solution. And my leader has said that. He said, if elected, we will sit down with the provinces and we will sort this out, and focus specifically on a plan that will help those folks that are coming. We know that CPP only supports folks up to 15% of their retirement. There are a whole bunch of other measures that people may or may not qualify for. We want to keep folks in their homes. We want to make sure that they don't have to make those decisions, because of something we did or didn't do. And it is a major problem.
I think it's a major problem, and there's not one business owner that would tell you it's a major problem. What every business owner would tell you, because I had a round table meeting with the minister on this, will tell you is it's not their problem.
But that's what we're hearing from the federal government as well, and that's what needs to change.
Yeah, well, it does to a certain degree, but small business is right. If they're paying proper compensation to the employee, and the employee's not putting their own money aside to save for their retirement, where does it all of a sudden become the business's responsibility? All business is saying at this point is, we don't disagree. But now we're paying premium dollar for our employees, and some aren't. Recognize some aren't, but lots of them are. Because they're forced to.
And those organizations, and that's the you got to look at the specifics of what they're proposing. If you already have a pension, you're as a company, you don't have to pay into this,
Mm-hmm,
right? So there are they are looking at that. There's tons of consultation that's gone into this. But again, we need a federal partner to make sure that this is the right decision.
I don't disagree with you one bit. We absolutely have to have a federal partner in this, and I think, because we take away the competitiveness of Ontario businesses to Manitoba businesses.
Exactly.
So this needs to be a
support.
national.
This is not just an Ontario.
No,
problem.
and it's not just an Ontario issue.
Yeah, exactly.
There are people who aren't saving coast to coast to
Exactly.
coast.
Yep.
I believe your leader has promised also a carbon tax system, and added on to what Ontario's promising, some sort of carbon tax or carbon credit system. I guess business sits here and says, like, how much are you going to pile on? And your leader is still saying, well, we want to make a globally competitive Canada.
Yeah.
How are we going to be globally competitive when business keeps piling on with all of these issues, ORPP, carbon tax from the feds and the province, and others? Who knows what it is? But how is Mr. Trudeau, in spite of all these added costs, going to keep Canada competitive?
Well, just to clarify, our position, the Liberal position, we're not adding a carbon tax. What we're saying is this is going to be provincial, and we don't believe there is a one size fits all system out there. So it's consultation through the provinces,
Yep.
making sure that they do have some price on carbon,
So you're saying not provincial and federal, one or the other.
Exactly. So we have provinces like Alberta that already have a carbon tax, and it's not a job killing tax as proof of that.
It's not. No.
But I hear what you're saying, and I think that's a bit of a misunderstanding. We're not looking at just piling on
that's
businesses.
good to know. We're
looking at really making sure that we are going to be competitive long term, and we know that this is coming. We know that we're almost at that point where there's no return in terms of climate change. Other countries, we're a major exporter. Other countries are going to start levying taxes, and on Canadian goods because we do not have a price on carbon. That's what we need to realize that's the threat coming from there, and so we need to be on the forefront of this. And I think we can be a global leader. We used to be global leaders in these kinds of issues, and I think this is something we can take and have a responsible conversation about the environment and about carbon.
Yeah, I think we all, everybody knows it's coming. Something's coming. I think, the misunderstanding is everybody thinks, man, we're going to have, the province is going to pile something on, then the feds are going to, the pile just keeps getting higher over top on these shoulders.
What's going to work in Alberta may not work in Ontario, and that's why we're not looking at a one size fits all solution.
No, that's good to know. The cost of government is out of control, as we all know. 42%, based on a $79,000 income, goes to taxes. In the last 50 years, household income has gone up 500%, and taxes have gone up 1,800%. So you don't even have to have a math degree to put that on a graph and figure out that at some point those two lines are going to come together. Right. And the ability for government to spend tax dollars is going to outpace the ability of the taxpayer to feed that animal.
Yes. What's
a Liberal government going to do to control costs and spending? And I'm not necessarily saying reduce the tax burden, although I'd love that. But how are you going to deal with that? Because I think down the road, this report just came out, as you know. I think down the road, people are going to start to say 42%. Holy smokes!
Exactly.
Something's got to end.
Yeah.
Well,
just to backtrack, I've read the Fraser Institute report and read very similar numbers there. But what we have to remember is 50 years ago, the government didn't pay for healthcare. Right, so there are some very big items here that the government now pays for that we didn't pay for 50 years ago. So we can't look at it in a bubble that specifically. But I'm incredibly proud of the platform piece. One of the first planks that we brought out was the fairness plan, and I agree. We have to help those that need it the most. We've had 10 years of a government that is focused on supporting the wealthy and hope that it trickles down to the middle class, hope that it creates jobs, and it just hasn't happened. It hasn't worked that way. We need to focus on middle class Canadians, and the way the Liberal government's going to do that, we're going to reduce middle class taxes by 7%. And not only are we saying we're going to do that, we've actually shared how we're going to pay for it, which I think is incredibly important. I'm actually a very fiscally conservative individual, and I think that is missing in a lot of the platforms out there. And we're going to pay for it by, for the first time in 30 years, creating a tax bracket at the top end. If you make more than $200,000 as an individual, we're going to ask you to do a little bit more. You know, that combined with the child tax benefit piece that's been in the news quite a bit, and we've been talking about quite a bit, you know, that's really going to help middle-class Canadians. And to be honest, it's going to help small business, because most small business owners are in the middle class.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Most
for
of their
sure.
employees are in the middle class. And so are most of their customers are in the middle class. And we know historically that if you give a tax break to the middle class, they spend
That's
it.
us, the
They
crazy middle
spend
class.
it, right?
Yeah.
And it gets the economy moving again. And that's the
Yeah.
piece that has been missing, like I said, for the last 10 years, is that for the first time I think probably Canadians' history, we're starting to see those in the middle class slide into the working poor
Oh yeah, for
in
sure.
greater numbers than climb out into the middle class. And that's the other real nice piece about this, is that this is going to raise over 300,000 kids out of poverty. You know, we've taken this to the subject matter experts. They've looked at it. They say this is fantastic. This is exactly what we need. And like I said at the beginning, I'm very proud that we're running on these kinds of platforms.
That's great. I love to hear about tax cuts. Scandals have been the highlight of every single government. We know that. You and I have been around long enough. We've seen many scandals. No one can claim to be the perfect party and scandal-free. Yet politicians think we forget about the past. When we remind them, they say, yeah, but it was different. It's now different. It's now different. But nothing seems to ever change. Duffy and Wallen and Brazeau are in the news right now, and it's a big deal. But largely because they're conservatives and it's an election period. And you know, I think those of us kind of in the political light, we understand that. But look at the NDP MPs.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have any senators because they've never been the government. But their MPs are, what is it, $2.7 million they have to pay back.
Yeah.
You know, you know your own party in the past. History says, but everybody's had that.
Yes.
Maybe not as bad as what the Senate is all of a sudden revealing, and which has called into question the validity of the Senate.
Yes.
So the NDP, what do they want to do? Get rid of it.
Yeah.
They want to vote it out of existence, which they can't do, but that's what they'd like to do. The Conservatives would like that too. However, they say failing that, well, we'll go to a direct elected Senate, maybe. That might be the answer. Your leader, however, says, no. We want to reform it. We want to make it functional again.
Yeah.
We want to make it purposeful.
Yeah.
We want to make it credible and responsible. And what's that going to look like?
Well, I think the first thing I want to address is the role of the Senate is a bit of an unknown to a lot of people, and I think that's part of this issue. We've had leadership in Ottawa. Stephen Harper has appointed senators that frankly should never have been appointed senators. We know this, okay? He said in 2006 he would never appoint a senator. He went on and appointed 56 of them. He now is sitting on 20 vacancies, over 20 vacancies, and not appointing senators when it's constitutionally his responsibility to do so. So he has arbitrarily decided he's going to make the Senate invalid or not an issue just by simply attrition. And this isn't the leadership that we need. Justin Trudeau, when this became an issue, Justin Trudeau expelled all his senators. He as the third party leader.
Yeah, kicked him out.
He kicked him out, and that was real change. That was real reform, and I think we just need to continue along that path. We need to focus on a merit-based system, so that we have people that are asked to be senators who deserve to be senators. We used to have fantastic senators. Romeo Dallaire. I mean, nobody's going to question his commitment to this country, and the work that he did in the Senate. The only thing that eliminating the Senate will do is provide more power to the Prime Minister's office. right? And again, is this going down a path of Americanizing our system? Listen, I don't think anybody has a clear-cut solution yet. That's why Justin Trudeau has said we will sit down again and get the smart guys in the room to figure this out. But I think we have to stop putting people in Senate simply as a thank you for being a good fundraiser for a particular party. And that's you mentioned Brazeau, Wallen, and Duffy. That was all in one day. These guys were brought in as senators, and again, I think it comes back to leadership. We've heard the stories about the Prime Minister's office literally whipping the Senate to vote in a particular way. That is new. That has not been the case in the past. This is supposed to be the sober second thought for the bills that are passed, and it needs to get back to that. I personally do not want to go to Ottawa as the representative of Cambridge and be bogged down in constitutional reform for the next 4 years, and that's all that would happen under the NDP and Conservative plan in terms of abolishing the Senate. They don't have a magic wand to simply do it, and it will cost taxpayers.
Well, largely the Senate is responsible for itself. It makes its own rules. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be separate from government.
Exactly. We need to reform the Senate, whether that's a vote, whether that's an elected Senate, whether it's a third party that's bringing forth candidates for the Senate. I think that's what we need to look at. These are real solutions that we can do right away, and not waste time and money, to be honest.
Speaking about how senators become senators and why they should become senators, electoral reform always comes into the forefront of every election. Your leader has talked about proportional representation. NDP leaders have talked about it for years and years and years because they've never been the government. And proportional representation would have been a lot better for them way back when. I think, and some of the parties, like the Green Party, they've talked about it because they've struggled to get seats as well. But Mr. Trudeau has said that what he's going to do is he's going to establish an all-party committee to sit down and talk about electoral reform, some alternative better than first past the post. I look at it, and I'm no genius, but I look at it and say, well, you either got first past the post or you got proportional representation or some modification of that, which really says to me, there may never be a majority government again. And I hate minority governments. A lot of people love them for some unknown reason. Maybe because they never want anything to change. I always want things to change, so I say, I don't care who it is, as long as it's a majority, at least something will get done. But if we have minority governments, I think, it could, you might have the Brian May party and the Greg DeRocher party. And
wouldn't that be fantastic?
Well, I think it'd be great. And we might both get a seat because we get a percentage of the vote, and I'm not quite sure. However, that said, Brian, and I know, there are proportional representation governments all over Europe, and that it works great, or seems to. What do you think?
Well,
without preempting, and
no,
I know everybody agrees with what your leader's saying. What do you think?
I think he's on the right track. I think we understand that proportional representation isn't working. We've seen what happens. We got to look back at one of the biggest issues we have right now.
First past the post isn't working.
Sorry, first past the post. Thank you. We got to look at the situation. The biggest situation right now is the voter turnout. We have 53% of voters in the last election in this riding voting.
Barely half.
Barely half. We need to encourage people to get out and vote. And I think there's a whole bunch of ways we can do that. Whether it's changing the current system, which again we've not committed to a specific system. We've said let's consult and let's all consult and figure out what is going to work best for Canada, not necessarily what's best for Europe or other countries. We need to know what's best for Canada, and what that'll end up. It might be a made in Canada system. That doesn't look like any of these other systems. We have to figure out a way to get people to re-engage with politics. There's things like internet voting. We did that
Yeah.
municipally here.
It worked.
You know, and it did. And
Yeah.
you know, nobody.
I don't think it really drove numbers, but you know what? You
But
got to do
you
things
got
to
to
make
start
it
somewhere.
convenient. Yeah.
You got to start somewhere, and I think if there was a federal initiative to
Yeah.
focus on stuff like that, I think that, you know, these are the kinds of things people are clamoring for. Right now, I'm talking to people at the doors, and like you said, nearly half of them are saying, my vote doesn't matter."
Yeah.
And that's the position we need to change.
Yeah.
That's the idea that we have to get through to people, that your vote does matter, and these are the changes that we're going to make to the election system to prove that we want.
I think Darren, you know, the problem with the first past the post that I see is that, you know, first of all, those who want to vote for a fringe party, they feel that their vote doesn't matter. So they're looking at it as not as a vote in support of that fringe party.
Yeah.
They're looking at it as a throwaway vote.
Sure.
And so it's very easy for them to say, I'm just not going to go to the poll. The other problem is, and my bigger problem is, I can't stand it, in spite of the fact I love majority governments, I can't stand it when the leader of the party who wins stands up at the night, and I don't care whether I voted for them or didn't vote for them,
Yeah.
stands up at the end of the night and says, I got a mandate with 34% of the
Yeah,
popular vote.
it's ridiculous.
It is not right, Brian.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not right
absolutely.
that they got a mandate, because they did not get a mandate.
Exactly.
Because 60% of the people said no.
Yeah, and to your point about majority versus minority governments, I would agree with you over the last decade that minority governments haven't worked. But I think it's the players involved, not the system. Because we know that under Pearson, in minority
Oh, yeah.
governments, some of the greatest things that we,
Yeah.
institutions that we cling to, healthcare,
Yeah.
that came through in a minority government.
Yeah.
And so we know it can work. But when you have the lack of cooperation between the parties, you know, just so that they can get to another election and maybe get a majority government so they can do what they want.
I think when you look at that, you have to really examine then the British parliamentary system, and do we change things and say, look, a government's not going to get kicked out just because they lost a vote.
Yeah.
I think, and then freer votes. So allowing,
Yes.
you know, allowing members of parliament to,
Yes.
to stray from their roots,
Exactly.
simply because that's what their constituency says.
And that's what Trudeau has said. If you
Yeah.
look at our reform package that we put out, one of the things that definitely jumped off the page was the idea of a free vote.
Yeah.
You know, obviously there are core items that such as budgets
Yep.
that we would be asked to vote with the
Well,
party.
of course, yeah.
But
because of the problem right now.
But he is committed to say, you know, we are, you know, as MPs, we are first and foremost representatives of Cambridge
Yeah.
in Ottawa, not representatives in Cambridge for a particular party.
Yeah.
And I would argue that's what we've had for the last decade, and we need to change that trend. You know, there are definitely different leadership
Yeah.
styles at play here, whether you're looking at the NDP, the Liberal, or the Conservatives. And again, I'm a Liberal, and I'm running under the Liberal banner for that reason, so that I can represent you and everyone else from Cambridge, North Dumfries, and actually now part of Brant.
Yeah.
You know, in Ottawa, and not vice versa.
Yeah, I think that's it's an interesting debate, and you know we all have our own opinions about it, but there's probably got to be a better than existing system. Small business too big to ignore, and that's our theme going forward. Now we're going to let every politician know and everybody know we want them to embrace it. In fact, I got buttons coming very soon, and I'm sure you'll
good.
be at the next Business After
Yeah.
Hours. So I'll make sure you get
I
a
get a
button.
button? Fantastic.
Small business too big to ignore. As you know, 98.2% of all employer businesses in this country
Yeah.
are small businesses under 100 employees. 2/3 of all Canadians work for a small business. 80%, as I said earlier, of all new job creation comes from small businesses. We're too big to ignore.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. We know that this is the single most important sector of our society and our economy. What will a Liberal government do to help with either grant programs for small businesses? Because quite frankly, the grant programs that are there now, unless you're doing a $10 million expansion, and not
Yeah.
too many of these guys are doing $10
Nope,
million
nope.
expansions. Taxes, red tape, any other burdens that are on small business. How important is small business going to be to a Liberal government?
Well, again, to reiterate, I think, you know, like I mentioned before, that the lowering taxes for middle class families, that is going to help small business right off the bat. You know, the 7% reduction in their middle class families' taxes, supporting families with a higher tax tax-free benefit is going to put more more money in their pockets and help them get the economy moving, spend more money, and so forth. But one of the things that I'm incredibly excited about, and I know you know about this because we've had, I know my riding association's had this conversation, but we in Cambridge, in the Liberals in Cambridge, have developed a grassroots manufacturing strategy for this country. And we have gone to Toyota, we have gone to Communitech, we put this strategy in front of them, and they say thumbs up, this is fantastic, this is exactly what we've been looking for a long time. And it's really going to help small businesses. You touched on it with grants. Not only are grants incredibly difficult to navigate, they're very opaque. You don't know if you're going to get it 1 year from the next. It doesn't actually create jobs. The jobs that grants are supported by were going to be created anyway. They've been planning 5, 10, 15 years down the road. This is simply a bonus. We know that we have to clean that system up. We have to make it more transparent. How much money is spent on consultants? You had mentioned earlier, a lot of these small business owners, they're spending, 15, 16-hour days just running the business.
They have to hire consultants.
How much does that eat into the actual grant that's being?
So most of them,
they get it.
You know what most of them tell me? It's not worth it.
It's not, and you're absolutely right. Unless you have an in-house person that has that expertise, you're not even applying. And I think it's really important to focus on those issues and say, listen, instead of a grant system, why not take that money and put it towards tax breaks that are very clearly laid out. So in other words, you hired this many employees, this is the tax break you get. You start this new line or venture into a new business or a new market, this is the tax break that you're going to receive. I'm thrilled about this, and as you know, we've been marketing this as you have been doing. We've got buttons too, and it makes sense for this region, but also we've designed it that it can be taken nationally. And I know it's being costed now. I know that this is coming out, and I'm going to run with it in Ottawa and say, listen, this is what we need to do to support all business, but really it's focusing on small manufacturers in this region. So.
And Cambridge has got a lot of them.
We got a lot. Well, we need more.
Yes.
We need.
Oh
more.
yeah, we do.
Yes.
We love those jobs. We love the manufacturing.
Well, they're
because they make things.
They
right?
do, but they're also good jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you seen the unemployment numbers? And you're thinking, well, that's not too bad. Well, then you realize that these folks that were working in different manufacturing situations that are now working 2, possibly 3 part-time jobs, they're not counted in those unemployment numbers.
No.
So we need to need to look at the underemployment in this country and really again have an honest conversation.
Yeah.
So.
Brian May, it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
I want to give you an opportunity to talk to the people of Cambridge, North Dumfries, and Brant.
Exactly.
And tell them why they should vote for Brian May.
Well, but first of all, I'd like to thank you. I think the opportunity to come in and reintroduce myself to not just the chamber but the people of Cambridge is really good. And as I was saying before, getting out early, this has been a great opportunity to do that, and this is fantastic. I'm really looking forward to working with you on this and how we can bring this not just for Cambridge, but how can we bring this to the national scale.
This is pretty easy to sell.
It is.
Not too many people.
It's tough to argue.
Yeah, not too many people, say, hey, don't help small business. Because we know everybody in small business. So.
Exactly. In terms of why folks should vote for me, I've been in this community for a very long time. I've worked in this community. I volunteer in this community. My family is I'm raising my family in this community, and I love this city. I love this this whole area. I've worked in different areas, whether it be the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, the University of Waterloo, and I've seen the struggles that they've had to go through after the 2008 election, and tried to help as much as I possibly can get them through. To me, this is an opportunity to extend that. I want to go to Ottawa and speak for those people and help those people. And only the folks out there that get out to vote are going to determine that. So I'm here obviously asking for your vote on October 19th or sooner. And if you have any questions at all about me, about the party platform, please contact our office. We're open. We're down on Hespeler and Dunbar, and we'll be pleased to have that conversation.
It's first past the post in this election.
It is first past the post. So I need everybody out. We know from knocking on doors that the trend is, I haven't voted in the past, but I'm getting out to vote this time. We need change in this community. We need change in Canada, and I'm really excited.
Brian May, we're going to see you at the next Business After
We
Hours.
will, absolutely.
Good to have you here.
Thank you so much.